ChoralEd. Welcome to another episode of Choral Ed. I'm your host, Micah Bland. Thanks so much for watching. And if you enjoy these videos, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Today in episode 5, we're talking about our personal mental health and well-being. And to discuss this topic, I'm pleased to welcome our very first guest to Choral Ed, Dr. Troy Robertson. Dr. Robertson, welcome.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
And so in a recent article you and your wife wrote for the Choral Journal, you include a quote by Brene Brown which states, quote, "It takes courage to say yes to rest and play in a culture where exhaustion is seen as a status symbol," end quote. So the question is, do you believe choral musicians fall into this category of being overworked and requiring courage to stop and rest?
Yes, and not without good reason. All of us care deeply about our students and our subject matter. And so we want to both care deeply and do good work. But then there's a third factor, which is we want others to know that we care and that we do good work. And one of the ways to communicate that is, I'm extremely busy. Another way to do that is to just be extremely busy. But all of us have heard the expression, burning the candle at both ends, and know what that means for our own health and our mental state and how we come into the rehearsal space.
Absolutely. And it's wonderful that we want to give so much to our students, which is great. But sometimes teachers just starting out often want to impress their administrators and their colleagues that they just say yes to everything. And so how and when should a teacher say no to all these extra things that maybe they're asked to do by administrators and colleagues?
Yeah, it's really tough. I think that as a young person, you have fewer physical limitations to begin with. You're sort of used to doing a lot and doing it many times thanklessly. You're used to little sleep and getting by maybe without the best diet, with no exercise. And so it takes a while before those limitations really start to hit home. What I try to impress on my students is that if you are going about your day exhausted, you're not being your best self, and you're really not serving anybody by continuing that pattern of behavior. That's one of the reasons that my wife Stephanie and I put at the end of the article some clear signs that you're beginning to become frustratingly tired and not going to be able to perform at a level that means you're doing your best for your students or for your singers.
And so when it comes to your personal mental health, what are your thoughts on setting up personal boundaries? For example, some teachers won't look at their school email outside of work hours.
I think it's really, really personal. Some people are, I know, constantly sort of in contact with their social group, and that is actually what they kind of thrive on. Others of us are exhausted by that activity. I think probably the latter camp is the majority, that being in constant contact via our phones is a source of exhaustion and stress. So when it comes to boundaries, I think there are even those among us who would shy away from setting sleep time, notifications off. That might even make us nervous, because we think, well, what if I miss an emergency? But if you're looking for a way to dip your toe into setting aside personal time, that might be the place to start. When I go to bed, I'm going to put my phone somewhere else, turn off the notifications. I'm not going to allow it to interfere there. And then it's reasonable, I think, to expect that there is an hour or two on either side of sleep where you have some personal space and some personal time. And the likelihood is that no one's going to fault you for it. So I think for many of us, that is a place to start taking baby steps and looking at some personal space. And the phone is often the focal point, because we are so accessible by the phone.
Absolutely. That immediate access to technology has been both beneficial and hurtful, especially if a parent gets a hold of your contact number. They want to call you at various times of the day when maybe it's, you're trying to unwind and get away. So in addition to establishing personal boundaries, are there other strategies you find beneficial to promoting mental health and well-being?
Well, yeah, and I think that again, as a young person, it's easy to sort of overlook. We all understand we may need some boundaries, some time for ourselves, but as a young person, it's easy to overlook your physical health as being part of your mental health. They're tied together closely. And so that can be diet, exercise, sleep patterns, all those things tie in. And I don't know about you, but I've certainly been in seasons of the year where I've got something every single night. And so I get up at 6 o'clock, 5:45, and I'm finishing rehearsal at 9:30, and I've really only had time for about 1.5 meals, and one of those meals was McDonald's because I was running from one thing to the next, and exercise didn't figure anywhere in that. And so I don't have enough rest. I've been on all day long, and I'm eating really poorly. Well, if that is one day or 2 days or 3 days, most of us can kind of recover. But if it's a pattern for a month, we're really headed for a burnout, and it's going to take a long time to recover. So in looking at your mental health, it's important to consider that your mental health is just one facet of your health, and they're all interconnected. So sleep and diet and exercise need to be figured in there as well.
Yes, you bring up a good point here about diet and exercise and its effect on our mental health. And I know myself, like I'm sure many others, probably neglect diet and exercise at times. But changing gears here a little bit, teachers often vent their frustrations to their colleagues as well as their family. And is this a dangerous practice for a teacher's personal mental health and the health and of their relationships with others?
I wouldn't say it's so much a dangerous practice as it is a warning sign. I think that's one of those signs that you can look for. Things are not in a good place. If you feel that you leave a conversation and think to yourself, man, I was really short, or I kind of let my anger get the better of me, or where is my patience? Where is it gone? Those are all signs that something is wrong, and to maybe stop and take a look at your schedule and how things are going. Where can you pull back just a little bit? Because if you don't have the emotional reserves left over from the day, and I think really all teachers and conductors can identify with that, getting home and just being done with the world. We've all had a day like that. Again, if that's not a day, if that's the norm, every day of the week, the weekend barely gets you back to square one, then that's not so much a bad pattern of behavior as it is a warning sign that there's something more global that needs to be examined.
So, talking about warning signs, when teachers are facing work and mental health challenges, some of them are uncomfortable seeking help from a therapist. And so, when should a teacher seek professional support?
Well, I know for myself, when I've been at some of the busiest times of my life where I was really at an unhealthy level of activity, the idea of adding anything was just non-starter. And so the idea of adding an exercise regimen or a diet or going to see a therapist was just not something I wanted to consider. So unfortunately, for many of us, it takes until the breaking point to even consider that. However, going to counseling is actually one of those things that can recharge us, because it's for teachers, it's easy for us to fall into this pattern of, well, I need to think about my students, I need to give, I need to give, I need to give, and any thought I have for myself is a selfless thought. Well, when you go to see a counselor, it's about you. It's that moment to try to understand what your thoughts and emotions are, and how you can deal with problems that you're facing. So it is a moment to sort of reflect and to have someone help you draw out those patterns of behavior, and sort of spread them out in front of you and consider. So it's not something that's comfortable for everyone, but it is in fact a way to sort of recharge and reset, even though it might seem like yet one more demand. As far as culturally being something that a lot of people are resistant to, I can understand that, because for many people, they see going to counseling as admitting that something's really wrong, not just kind of wrong, but really wrong. But that's not really what counseling is for. Counseling is for everyone to sort of be their best self. And so it's not that there's some horrific problem that we're dealing with, but just that we're trying to be a better self for our students and for our loved ones. It may be that there's a crisis that we need to deal with, but it may be that we just need a little help, and we're not getting it in our normal day to day. And counselors are equipped to give you the tools to get through that process of, where do I need to be a week from now, a year from now, 5 years from now? How am I going to get from A to B?
So, as we conclude here, do you have any final thoughts or comments for those choral educators out there when it comes to their well being and mental health?
Yeah, well, I teach at the collegiate level now, and so one of my main drives when I'm talking about the subject is to impress on teachers who are just starting out, these young teachers, that a lot of what they hear about, you've got to go dark to dark for your students, and sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. It doesn't mean literally do that from August through August through May, August through June. That you've got to consider that to be the best teacher you can be, it's going to take a process of being deliberate about where you spend your energy, how you spend your energy, and the hours in the day, because there are only so many hours in the day in which you can be on and productive and great for your kids. I also talked to them about the fact that early in your career, many of the things that are just exhausting and seem like mountains you'll never climb, they get easier as you go along, because these things become habitual, that you have to do all these tasks that require so much mental effort. They do get easier, so that my students, they both know that they're going to have to look out for the temptation to be over the top, but that they also can look forward, so there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It will get easier with time.
Absolutely. I can attest that it does get easier with time. And so, all you choral directors out there that are just starting out, give it some time. It does get easier as you continue to work and develop in your career. Thank you, Dr. Robertson. And as always, thanks for watching. And I hope you continue to inspire the future leaders of our world through this wonderful gift we call music. Thanks.